Hi everybody, it's Kylie from Little Moo Designs. I'm so excited to be here today sharing with you a brand spanking new project that I've worked on with Brother Australia. Today I'm bringing you the Clearview pouch. The Clearview pouch is a free pattern that you can download from www.brotherinspires.com.au and is a collaboration between Brother Australia and myself, Kylie from Little Moo Designs. We're so excited to bring this pattern to you guys just in time for Christmas to make some amazing Christmas gifts. So let me show you this pouch a little bit closer. Combining clear vinyl and fabric, the Clearview pouch is both stylish and functional whilst being a fast sewing project. These fun zipper pouches are perfect for storing sewing supplies, stationery, and so much more. Make one for yourself or as a gift. You won't want to stop at one. If you've ever wanted to sew with vinyl, this is certainly the perfect beginner project for you to try. This is also an awesome scrap busting project. So as you can see, we've got some fabric, a zip, and our clear vinyl, which makes these Clearview pouches really fabulous for storing anything that you can imagine. In this one, I've got some of my sewing supplies, and when I flip it over, you can see the beautiful contrast fabric that I've used inside, which is a really fun feature of this pouch. The great thing with this pouch is that if you love working with vinyl like I do, you won't stop at one. I've made so many of these because I just think they're such a practical gift to give, and I get to showcase some of my favorite vinyl. So as you can see here, I've used a gorgeous glitter vinyl. Can you see that there? With some really cute Japanese fabric, which I just love. And this one here, I've used the clear vinyl with some really sweet fabric. And here's one, I changed the size of this one, but here's one I've done for my son to store his textures in. And I've just used some fun superhero fabric with a green vinyl, so this one can't get lost easily, which is always handy when you're out and about with children. Let's get started. First things first, you need to go to www.brotherinspires.com.au. You will see the Clearview pouch there. You need to download and print the pattern. There's me, haha. You need to read through the pattern really carefully. There's lots of tips and tricks in here which are really informative and important. So read through. My tips on working with vinyl is essential. Read through the whole pattern before you begin. It's got beautiful diagrams which are really easy to work with and to understand. Let's work through the requirements list. So what you need to make your Clearview pouch is some clear vinyl or any type of vinyl like glitter vinyl. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. You need your fabric, which can be just some fabric offcuts if you like. You need some light to mid-weight iron-on interfacing. You need a zipper, and I recommend a number 5 nylon zipper, which is 18 inches or 50 centimeters in length. I will also discuss what a number 5 zipper is in a minute. You definitely need a Teflon or a walking foot. If you haven't worked with these feet before, this is a Teflon foot. And as you can see, it's a plastic-based foot rather than metal. And the base of this foot has a non-slip coating. So when I'm working with vinyl, I will use this foot and it really easily glides over the vinyl that I'm working with rather than sticking. If I'm using my universal foot, I find that it sticks. If you don't have a Teflon foot or a walking foot, you can put washi tape on the underside of a universal foot and it will then become a non-slip foot. But if you have this, it's time to grab it out now because you're going to need it for this project. I also suggest that if you haven't worked with zippers very much, you might want to grab yourself some double-sided tape. It really helps stabilize the zip when sewing. So it's just the really skinny stuff that I've grabbed from my local cheap shop or a craft supply shop. I know there are quilting versions of this that will wash away. People do have their personal preferences. I just use whatever I can get my hands on. I use this quite often. So grab this from your local supply store. I think it's really helpful if you're making one of these for the first time. You may have noticed when I turned my Clearview pouch over before. Let me just find it here. If you can see in there, this is a raw edge pouch. What that means is I use a product called Fray Stop just to seal those edges to ensure the longevity of my pouch, that there is going to be no fraying. I'm sure there's other products out there, but this is the one that I use, and it's by Helma, and it's called Fray Stopper. You need that one too. You also, of course, need your sewing machine. So the sewing machine that I'm sewing on today is my fabulous brand spanking new Brother Enovis A150. I'm so excited to sew with this machine. It really is a dream. So grab your domestic sewing machine. That's what this pattern is designed for. You, of course, need thread, scissors, a ruler, a rotary cutter. I do cut my vinyl with rotary cutter. I find it a bit easier than cutting with scissors because vinyl can be a little bit tricky. You also need a hairdryer, and you'll see why. Vinyl can be quite hard to turn, so we use a hairdryer to soften the vinyl at the end of this pattern before we turn the pouch the right way out. The other thing that you'll need is some Wonder clips. So these little quilting clips, you can't pin vinyl, it will leave marks. So I use these to hold my pouch together, have them in lots of different sizes. They're a really handy product to have as well. First things first, let's talk about vinyl. Vinyl in Australia was previously difficult to find. However, when I went on a bit of a mission when I was making this pattern some time ago, I was lucky enough to stumble across the amazing range that Bunnings has. I never look in Bunnings that often, to be honest. If I am, I'm in the nursery section, but I stumbled across these amazing vinyls in Bunnings. Spotlight also has a range by the roll in the furnishing section that people use for tablecloths. So that's another option. But these three are products that I got from Bunnings. So the pattern calls for what we call 12 gauge, which is an idea on the weight of the vinyl that we're using. So you need to go to your local, whether it's Bunnings, Spotlight or similar, and have a feel of the vinyls. You will feel there's some lightweight vinyls, there's some heavyweight vinyls. We really want the midweight vinyl. It is really difficult to show you that on camera. However, you will just need to go and feel them. You don't want the heavyweight, that won't sew well through a domestic machine, in my opinion. You don't want the lightweight, that may rip as we're stitching. You want the midweight. And if you go in, you'll see, particularly in the clear vinyl, there was the 3 different weights when I was in my local Bunnings. So here I've got clear vinyl, midweight, also known as 12 gauge. Here's the glitter. Can you see? It's so sparkly and fun. I love working with this one. This is a little bit lighter than the clear that I use, but it's okay. I wouldn't go any lighter than that. And this one is kind of fun. It looks like bubbles. And I've made a few pouches in this too. I really like that. Another option is a beautiful friend of mine named Natalie in the US stocks a range of the most amazing coloured vinyls. Check these out. They're just gorgeous, including this holographic. You can find her at So Hungry Hippie on Instagram. I'm pretty sure she's on Facebook, and I purchased these off Etsy. So they're a fun option. If you really love making these, you might want to check them out also. Next up, let's talk zippers. Zippers can be quite daunting for people if they haven't used them before. However, I think this is a really awesome beginner zipper project. So the pattern talks about requiring an 18-inch length zip, which is also about 45 centimeters long. If it's longer, that's not a problem. We just cut it down to size. Now, I would suggest that you use a nylon zip rather than a metal zip. To sew through metal teeth can be a little bit tricky, particularly if this is your first project sewing with zips. There are quite a huge range of zips out there, and that can be really overwhelming for people too. So I will try and simplify it the best that I can. When I walk into my local Spotlight or similar, you will see most commonly these zips here, which are called dress zips, also known as number 3 zips. They come from a range of companies. One of the most common ones that you may see is YKK. Beautiful brand, good quality, all of that stuff. The ones that I most commonly use in bag making are not dress zips, surprisingly. They're called number 5 zips or handbag zips. This zip is actually from whosaysso.com in Australia, and these are sold by the meter. So I buy this by the meter, and they come with all these beautiful different pulls. There's love hearts and all sorts of different things, ring pulls, amazing fancy looking things. Now these look like metal, but they're actually nylon, if you can see there, which means I can stitch over the top of this zip without any issue. Now the difference between a number 3 and a number 5 zip, if I lay them on top like that, you can see that the number 5 zip is slightly wider. The teeth are wider than this dress zip, and they're so easy to open and close. So of course on a handbag or a pouch or a clutch, you want really easy to open zippers. That's really important in what we're doing. So my personal preference for this pouch is to use a number 5 zip. You can do it with a number 3, but this zipper tape being a little bit wider also gives you a little bit more room to move. So these are also great for people learning to sew with zips. So let's get started. You need to cut out your project as per the cutting chart on the pattern. Today I'm using this is a goldy coloured light gold number 5 zip from whosaysso.com. I'm telling you because I know people are going to message me and ask. I'm using this amazing cool bird fabric from Ali Whitaker Design, one of my favourite Aussie fabric designers. This just came in the mail today, quite convenient. Needs to be made into a pouch. It's really fun. I've cut it to size. So you'll notice that the cutting chart talks about 2 pieces of interfacing. So 2 are not interfaced and 2 are. And I've just fused them to the wrong side of my fabric on 2 pieces. Now I'm using all the same fabric today, so it doesn't really matter which side they go on for me. When we talk about fusing interfacing, please follow the manufacturer's instructions, which should come with your interfacing. My suggestions to you are to start on a low setting, and instead of ironing like you would a shirt, sort of forward and backwards motion, press and lift, press and lift, press and lift. That way you will hopefully avoid wrinkles, because interfacing can tend to wrinkle a bit too easily. You then need your piece of vinyl cut to size. Now I've used a rotary cutter and a ruler to cut this, and I've used my sparkly glitter vinyl today because I thought it might be a little bit easier to see on camera than just the clear. So once you're at this stage, I think we need to get sewing. Okay, so I've cut all my fabrics as per the cutting chart, and I fused my interfacing. On the wrong side of all of your fabric pieces, you need to fold each long edge over 1/2 inch and iron towards the center. You may find drawing a 1/2 inch line helpful to get an accurate fold. So I'm just using my friction pen and a ruler, and I'm just going to draw 1/2 inch lines on the backs of all my pieces along the long edges. An alternative to this is you could grab a manila folder or something similar and draw these lines and actually lay that mark along here, fold, and then when you iron you could keep that folder or piece of cardboard in there to get a really accurate fold. But basically you're going to fold along here along your 1/2 inch line, and you're going to iron that edge. You're going to do that for all 4 pieces. I will do that and come back to you. Okay, so as you can see, I've ironed my long edges over 1/2 inch on all of my fabric pieces. We're now ready to play with some zips. Taking one of my exterior edges, so one of the interfaced pieces, I'm then going to take my double-sided tape and I'm going to run it down this edge, just like so. Now you'll notice that my double-sided tape is quite skinny. That's a good thing. You don't want it too wide or it can gum up your needle. So just running it down like that and cut off that edge. I'm going to repeat for the other side. Giving it a good press as I'm going. Now, just working with one side of your tape, you're just going to peel off. I haven't gone right to the edge. You can if you like, but I find this sticks well enough. So you see that backing comes off. Just peel that away. Now laying it flat in front of me and taking my zip, and I'm placing my zip right side down, so the zip head is facing downwards. And I'm going to lay the edge of the zip along the double-sided tape like so. Give it a gentle press. Then turn it over and make sure it's sitting exactly where you want it to sit. Now I can easily move it if I need to. If you don't have double-sided tape, you certainly can use pins. They can be a little bit trickier to work with. Zip tape does tend to wobble a bit when you're stitching, so most people find the double-sided tape secures it enough to get a really neat finish. So I'm quite happy with that. Now, just while I've got this here, have a look at where I've placed my fabric. You'll notice that unlike if I'm making a skirt or something like that and I'm using a dress zip, you're trying to get really super close to the teeth. With these number 5 zips, remember we have that extra width in the zip tape. So I'm coming back. I need to ensure that my pouch can open really easily like so. So just consider that. You do want a gap between the zip teeth and the fabric and trying to keep a nice straight edge. Just like that. There's no tricks to that. You just pick up and move the fabric until you're really happy with the placement. Now taking one of your lining pieces, I've just put double-sided tape down that edge. Now, just something else to consider is if you're using directional fabric, of course you need to make sure it's the right way up. Mine is not directional fabric. These birds are all over the place, so I can put them anywhere I like. So now I've peeled off that sticky back of the tape and I'm going to lay this on the opposite side. Now I can line up, because I've perfectly ironed the 1/2 inch edge, should make it easy to get a really neat finish here. So just gently tap, flip it over. Now you make sure that all of your edges line up beautifully. If not, you can adjust, you can wiggle, you can move things around. The double-sided tape, it's really easy to peel, move your fabric until you're happy with the placement. I think that looks good. Okay, we're then going to repeat that step for the other side. So as you can see, I've lined up my pieces of fabric nice and straight with my zip. I'm really happy with where that's sitting. You'll notice that the zip is longer than the fabric. Please don't cut at this point. It makes sewing your pouch easier. We will cut right at the end. Next, I'm going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance and I'm going to top stitch along the edge of the fabric closest to the zip, which is along here and along here. You could use a twin needle for your top stitching if you like that effect. Best to refer to your manual for that. And you could use a matching or a contrast thread, whatever you like for this step. Ensuring that your zip head is way out of the way of your stitching, I'm going to sew using a 1/4 inch seam allowance along this side. I've put my stitch length to a 3.5, and again I'm using my Brother and Novus A150 for this, and I'm just reverse stitching and away I go. You'll see I'm using my universal foot for this step. We're not up to needing the Teflon foot just yet. Just go nice and slow, trying to get as straight as possible. And you'll see that the double-sided tape holds that nicely in place. Reverse stitch again. I love that this machine has the auto thread cutter. Beautiful. Then I'm going to repeat for the other side. Again, you'll see my zip head's way out of the way, making this nice and easy to stitch. Reverse stitching and along the long edge, keeping it nice and straight. we're done. So when I flip over, you can see that I've caught the underside beautifully. You can see that the zip is going to open nicely. Now we're ready to add the vinyl. This is the exciting part. I've placed double-sided tape along both of the non-sewn edges of my pouch, and I now have my vinyl here. What you need to do is lifting open the fabrics. You've laid your double-sided tape. You're now going to sandwich the vinyl between the two layers of fabric, 1/2 inch inside the layers. Now conveniently, this is a 1/2 inch edge that you folded over and ironed previously. So what I do is I've peeled off the sticky side, and I'm just going to lay my vinyl along here like so. You can see that is not in the right spot, but that's okay. I will cut that off later. And I've just put my scissors there to hold that one in place. You're then going to flip this down and press, 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 and you should have a pouch that lines up beautifully. I'm then going to go back over to my machine, and I'm going to top stitch exactly as I did here with the same stitch length, same foot along this edge. Again, I don't need my Teflon foot just yet. I'll do that and I'll be back with you in a second. This is what you should have now. Turning to page 5 of your pattern, you're going to repeat the previous step to the other side of the fabric. So we're going to spin over this way and work from this side. Now, again, you can see I've got the double-sided tape along both of these edges. Just try and peel that off. Oh, beautiful. Sometimes it can be a little bit tricky, like this one. Doesn't want to come off. There we go. Beautiful. Okay. Let's see the best way to work this. We'll go down here. This is really sticky. And I'll just hold that end open with my scissors there as a weight. Now, if you've cut nice and straight your vinyl, laying along this edge, like so, pressing down and pressing again. You're now going to repeat your top stitching down this side, but of course that can be tricky because we have so many layers. So the fact that you have your zip longer is important, because what I can do is now get this edge under my sewing machine foot and stitch down here. If you have a short zip, it just doesn't give you as much room to move, particularly if you're beginning. This is now what your pouch should look like. So next you're going to open your zip up and turn your pouch the wrong side out, like so. Now, again, if using directional fabric, it's really important that you take note of which is the top and which is the bottom of your pouch at this point. So let's close this up. You now need to arrange your pouch for the final rows of stitching. We're going to arrange the vinyl so that it extends 1.5 inches above the top of the fabric. And I'll show you how I do this. So for me, this is going to be the top of my pouch. Your pouch should now look like this. I just added a little label so that helps me know which is the top piece of my fabric. If you're using directional fabric, of course, that's really easy to know which way is the right way up and the wrong way up. So you now need to turn your pouch by opening your zip inside out, like so. And you're going to arrange the vinyl so that it extends 1.5 inches above the top of the fabric edge. I'll show you how I do this. So this is the top side facing this way. So I've just put my ruler here and I'm measuring 1.5 inches along here to get a nice straight edge, and I just finger press that down. Can you see like that? Okay, next you need your little wonder clips. and we're just going to clip the sides. Now you'll see my pouch has shifted a little bit. I'm not too worried about that because I will correct that at the end, because we actually cut all of what's in the seam out of the way. So if yours looks like that too, that's okay. Sometimes things move. It's all okay with sewing. Alrighty, so just putting a few of these. Now again, remember I'm not pinning these edges because you would see the pinned edges. There we go. Now at this step we're changing the seam allowance to be a 1/2 inch, and the reason is that's going to catch all these edges, and if there's any unevenness it just gives it a better finish, I feel. So you're going to now need your Teflon foot, which is this little guy here. Remember the non-stick foot that we talked about at the beginning of the video, and you're going to be stitching using a 1/2 inch seam allowance down this edge and down this edge here. When you get to your zips, you need to go over this a couple of times. So I reverse stitch over these. I suggest doing a straight stitch first. If you then want to come back and do a zigzag stitch for security, you can do that. That's fine. The other thing that I haven't done is you need to ensure at this step that your zip is wide open. Otherwise, you can't turn your pouch. And ask me how I know that. That's probably happened quite a number of times. Again, that's okay. It's tricky. You can wiggle them open from the inside when they're closed, but it is a bit tricky with vinyl. So let's go and stitch down these 2 short edges here. And our pouch is nearly finished. It's looking so good. Okay, we're going to drop down to my normal stitch length, which is a 2.5 mils. And you can see how I've got this set up. So I've got my Teflon foot on, so we're going to hopefully have a non-stick success with this pouch. That's the plan. Also, because I've got the bed extender on my machine, I love using that. I do find that the vinyl will stick to that and throw my stitching out a little bit. So what I do is I place a piece of baking paper just under like the rest of the pouch. It doesn't touch my needle or my stitching or anything like that, but it's just enough to sort of help it glide through, particularly in Queensland on hot days. It can stick a little bit. So needle down, just going to go forwards, backwards as usual. How's that? No sticking. And we are off sewing vinyl. Did you think it could be this easy? It's so fun. I love vinyl. So now we're coming up to the zip. Now remember, we've used a nylon zip, so we can stitch, look, straight over it without any problems. But what I like to do, because that is a pressure point in the bag, whoops, we're just going to reverse stitch. See, it does like to stick to the foot there. Backwards and go forwards again. I like to do this a good 2 to 3 times. Now remember, my pouch wasn't perfectly in line, so I'm eyeballing it a little bit. I probably could have trimmed it before we did this, but it's okay. Forwards and backwards. And, excuse my hand, but we're done, okay? Now, we're going to go on the other side. This side is a bit off, so I might actually go and trim this one up before I stitch it, just for a neater finish. Okay, I have cleaned that up. I probably should have done that to the other side too, but that's okay. Now we're just going to repeat what we've done. Keeping a nice straight edge. It is easier when you trim. I'm taking my clips off as I'm going. Now this edge of my zip will tend to come apart. However, I do find the vinyl kind of sticks that edge down. So if you just hold your fingers there, and as you're going over, if you find any issues, just lift your foot and recenter. And backwards and forwards again over that edge, and then it won't move. Keep it nice and straight, working to the end of the pouch. Sorry for the bumping of my camera there. Okay, backwards and forwards again. And we're done. So here is my pouch ready for the final step. So you can see we have quite a big edge there because we did the 1/2 inch seam allowance, but that's okay. We're now going to trim off all of this excess. Now I like to use my ruler and a rotary cutter and just lay it on my stitch line so I know that I'm not cutting through my stitching, like so. That also gives me a nice neat finish. Just go over the zip, not touched any of my stitching, so we know it's a nice secure edge, and repeat for the other side. And this is the point where you're cutting off your excess zip. Just going slow. It is easy to cut your stitching. Let's try not to do that. Let's get rid of those little edges. Okay, now this vinyl isn't as thick as the clear as I mentioned at the beginning. So it is actually, I can actually turn this at this point. Oh, sorry, there's one more step I missed. I'll come back to what we need to do in a second. If, though, you are using... the next step is we need to put some fray stop or similar product on those raw edges to ensure that we don't get fraying. Now this product does dry clear, so it doesn't have to be perfect. I do find the hot weather makes it quite runny as well. So I then like to just wait a minute or two for that to dry completely before we're going to turn our pouch the right side out. Very exciting. Now, because I've used glitter vinyl and it's not so thick, I don't need to use a hairdryer at this point on this particular vinyl. If your vinyl is a little bit thicker, you may find turning it like so can be a bit tricky. So what you do is you get a hairdryer and you just gently heat up. Make sure you don't melt your vinyl, it's really important. Just give it a gentle heat and you'll find it softens it enough for you to turn it right side out. So my zip's opened, turning it out like so, like this. Now those edges can be tricky, particularly on your thicker vinyls. So I like to take just a regular chopstick and gently poke out those corners so they're nice and square. Oh, this is so cool. I love it. Just love making these pouches. See, that edge isn't turned out well, so I just get back in there and gently with my chopstick poke gently. Don't want to break your stitching. Really important. Zip closed, press nice and flat. Now I would suggest not ironing. You could iron your fabric if you needed to, but be careful because it's quite easy to melt the vinyl and we don't want to do that. These little zips come with beautiful covers, so the end product is shiny, lovely, and super practical. That is how you make a Clearview pouch. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I really want to give a huge thanks to Brother Australia for working with me on this design, and we really hope you guys stay tuned. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel. Please continue following on social media because there are more amazing designs in the works between Brother Australia and I'm super duper excited to be working with these guys. It really is a dream come true. I cannot wait to see your Clearview pouches. Make sure you tag me on social media if you're sharing. Hashtag Clearview pouch is where you can get some awesome inspiration, and I really look forward to seeing what you guys sew up for yourself in the near future. Thanks so much. Tuning out. Bye-bye.